most startups will lose 100% of their investor money. But simply put, with a too hard bucket and whatever other failings or flaws that I'll take full responsibility. I didn't raise enough bucks. So at some point I had put an irresponsible amount of my own money into the situation and could not keep doing it.
Dean, before we get into anything else, I want to give you a chance to just share your story, your journey with the Liberty Ventures community to provide some context to everything we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Alexander, thank you for this. It's a great honor. I know the kind of company this is going to be set within. So, it's a great, it's a privilege and a pleasure. Uh, Journey. Yeah. I call myself an application developer as opposed to a computer scientist or other things. Um, I can just point to the graying, balding hair. I've, writing software since high school. That means over 40 years. As fast as I can, go through some, couple little highlights. Sort of accidentally wound up on Wall Street, um, pre-internet, a time where the lengthy commute on the train had many pounds of what people used to call animal books, textbook, big cinder block size things with animals on the cover. And of course, I'm spacing out on the publisher name now. But constantly learning new things by book on the train. Got thrown into a little PC database system, and I built that thing into a very notable system at Nomura Securities that wound up essentially running all the business development efforts in the fixed income division in a very exciting time there. Spent 3 years with them. I won't spend as much time on each of the things. Suffice to say, I wound up with Lehman Brothers in Tokyo for a little while during an exciting time for them. They almost went bankrupt. I wound up at First National Bank of Chicago doing algo trading, where I had followed my mentor from Nomura Securities, Robin Koskinen, head of the fixed income division, over to First National Bank of Chicago. Realized now that I was doing now what people call machine learning and some, a brute force AI kind of stuff. So I know some of the problems that people are now facing with AI, but having done that, sort of low level from scratch without the NVIDIA hardware to make it go super fast. The next computers I was using, or singular computer, had a DSP chip that I guess was somewhat of a precursor to what people are doing with the NVIDIA chips right now. Didn't want to go down with the next ship, so to speak. Luckily, that lived on, in the form of OS X, and wound up at Bear Stearns. Had a good run, a number of groups over there. I guess notably built, was a chief architect of a system that was the front office system for their equity derivatives desk. My buddy Robin called me up one day with a very enticing spreadsheet, ironically, lured me away from there, where I was like managing director principal, one promotion away from their equivalent of a partner title. And that was at the plus or minus a few days, the peak of the NASDAQ. And as the NASDAQ began to crash and then 9/11 happened, and my peers were getting that, sort of senior managing director partner title, I was like, oh my God, what did I do? Little did I know that protected me from the demise of Bear Stearns. Um, Skipping forward a little bit, wound up back with some Bear Stearns buddies at an energy trading company, or part of Allegheny Energy. Said to my wife, okay, I'm back on my feet. This is going to be great. And then within a year of that, collateral damage from Enron, let's say, almost took down Allegheny. Oh my God, what did I do? So fortunately, the trading desk that I was writing software for there pulled me aside and said, hey, we know we have a great business. You're the only guy who's ever actually listened to us and given us what we want in record time and all that. So we want you to be our CTO, partner, whatever else you want to call yourself. And so did that, and it wound up being fully remote. It were most 90 something percent remote, and had a very good run. Let's just say very financially um, profitable run for about 10 years with them. In that 10th year, I was getting itchy to do more, to apply uh, Amazon Web Services, the cloud technology to some of the problems that we were working on. Again, sort of tackling machine learning, data analysis kind of stuff in a very brute force kind of way. And we'd built our own machine room and it was cool and it worked. But anyway, suffice it to say, um, I wound up leaving them and I had begun working on something that turned into ClearFactr. And at the time, everyone who had seen it said, like, oh my God, you got to do something with this. I had not seen Google Sheets yet. And if I had, maybe ClearFactr would have never happened. But suffice to say, I left and went out on my own. Um, we could fill up the rest of the talk with all of the startup drama of, early ClearFactr days. Every startup has that kind of drama. Eventually, I wound up talking to Goldman Sachs. Gee, maybe they'll invest, maybe they'll use it, and so on and so forth. And then, depending on how you do the accounting, 2 or 3 years into that conversation, um, acqui-hired myself and the code base into Goldman Sachs. November 2018, had my 15 minutes of fame out on the internet with that acquisition. And things there went all the way to the stage of the product going viral, many thousands of people deriving benefit from it directly, indirectly. And then suffice to say, things changed over there as they went through a public period of rather dramatic cost cutting. So I am thankfully owner of the ClearFactr IP. Now 4 patents, all the source code and everything else. Once again, and looking to monetize the overall situation in one of perhaps many different forms.
So to compress the story briefly, you are a developer and have had the opportunity to work both in the entrepreneurial setting, starting your own company, as well as working at some of the biggest companies out there. And actually, through that process, you had ClearFactr acquired at one point. You're spinning it out on your own now. So you've been in a variety of different roles in the business world.
Yes, and I can absolutely say that it's been sort of my combination of not being that um, PhD computer scientist person, right? And always being, sort of right there with senior management, if not, in senior management. That combination has absolutely set me apart. Being customer centric before anyone ever heard the terms working backwards, that kind of stuff, right? I mean, that I've been customer first from the earliest of days. And, it turns out customers really, even potential customers really like being listened to. They, um, great to, just get literally shoulder to shoulder with them and, be able to point at the screen. Hey, Dean, get over here. I want to show you something and, knock things around like that live in person. And I did, I guess, my, very fair share of product management also before that was a thing on LinkedIn or a separate title and so on. So yeah, but jack of jack of many trades there.
The point that you've been customer centric for such a long time is an important one to dig into here for not just entrepreneurs, but really anyone in business. So, say a little bit more about why, how you adopted that so early on and what that really means for you. You started to touch on that, but I'd love to dig into that more.
Well, to date myself further, there used to be a um, magazine called Dr. Dobbs Journal that all the serious developers would read, and without being disparaging to all the great stuff that was in there and so on, I just saw too many times too many developers saying like, "Oh, did you see the article, Dr. Dobbs?" Or, again, this pre-internet, um, and sort of determined to jam that latest, greatest shiny object into the system of the moment somehow or another. Um, might make for a nice item on your resume and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, the end users didn't care about any of that stuff. They cared about the system being reliable. Cared about their needs being met, not my needs as a developer or whatever my career path was. And it just seemed like the most obvious and natural path to success. Again, turns out if you keep your customers happy, one way or the other, the benefits accrue back, to yourself. So I just saw that too many times to argue with.
Well, like I said, it's an important lesson for any entrepreneur listening to keep in mind, or really anyone listening to the podcast. But let's go to as you were building up ClearFactr the first time around. You said there are always ups and downs in the entrepreneurial journey. What was that experience like for you, especially since you had come from working in so many big companies before you went out on your own?
A number of different things that, again, uh, probably only through the passage of time did I realize, like, oh, that's what happened. Or actually within the last year. For starters, I could throw this one out there. Someone used this phrase with me regarding the early stage VC, group, right? The people who are looking for people who I thought I met the definition, hardworking, novel, big, challenging problem with gigantic market, looking to change the world in some way, or whatever. But someone said to me somewhere a little over a year ago, like, "Oh no, dude, you fell into the too hard bucket." And meaning that problem I was tackling, um, with the obvious comparison to Excel, let's say, right? The most popular spreadsheet. Yeah, absolutely. I was making this sort of outlandish, outrageous kind of ask to use my product instead of Excel for some things. But bar to get over, right? The functionality bar with Excel was so high that to make that ask, you just had to have a lot of things in place, right? And there was no way we were going to match. Um, all of the literally billions of dollars of R&D that Excel had put in, and then let alone Google and so on, right? It just couldn't possibly do that. But the too hard bucket, yeah, that meant, well, that VC or any of the other, many of them I might see per week or per month, there was me, but then there were 20 other me's, 20 other DACs that they had to go through that day or that week, maybe way more than 20 in a week, let alone a month. So yeah, too hard, man. Like, wish you well. I can see, yeah, your resume, you've had some good successes and all this, but, but yeah, wow. And then of course, reflecting back, complicated story, right? Because no, we're not I'm not Google. I can't, Google could make a legitimate case that they were going to try to replicate, as I say, pixel for pixel, the Excel experience. Little anecdote I had heard, they spent $10 million just building their Excel importer capability. So, it just gives you a little glimpse as to what it would take to get the product um, to where they got Google Sheets, which, is a beautiful product, right? Yeah. Over 10 years in, we'll get to, some of the Goldman successes maybe here, realized, oh yeah, well, sorry, I don't mean to jump back and forth, but it's all simultaneously. Just a week ago, someone said, "Oh no, you're not an Excel competitor. Absolutely not." And a little over a year ago, first time, 18 months, maybe put in writing, yeah, we're a development platform, an application development platform, because the best, most impactful use cases at Goldman came from the custom solutions that people built using the full breadth of our tool set, the web app, the API, and, the whole ecosystem, moving thousands of models out of, potential rat's nest of Excel files. and into this ecosystem that they would build for themselves. And yeah, some of the most gratifying feedback was like, oh yeah, without ClearFactr, we just could not have built what we built, or with ClearFactr, we built, yeah, in 3 months what would have taken a year or more.
So it sounds like even though you had people telling you this is too hard and you were up against stiff competition, you pushed through and kept focusing on what your customers wanted that perhaps they weren't getting from Google Sheets or Excel at the time. But what gave you the drive and motivation to keep pushing forward even when you were told you were in this too hard bucket?
Yeah, confidence in myself, faith, in every respect, lowercase f, capital F. Uh, that knowing I could do it, that um, if I didn't get overly distracted by other things, and learned to say no a little bit here and there, to just try to remain on course. Um, I, I don't know, somewhat in my DNA. I've heard similar things from relatives. Just oh yeah, someone said like, oh, Zarras, work like bull. And yeah, all along the way, realized like, yeah, hard work just eventually pays off. You'll get you over that goal. You just stay determined. Um, Kind of learned early on too, like, oh yeah, I could work 20% harder and make 50% more money. Okay, that's a good trade to do in size. Of course, it will physically kill you at the limit, so you have to know where to back off. And I can't say I've gotten the work-life balance thing right yet, but that's a top priority right now. Interesting story with Goldman, and during the whole tire kicking there in the acquisition process. Um, I had been very pleased to hear that Google Sheets had decided similarly that they were not going to support circular references in their valuation engine, as I had decided. And then with Goldman, a guy wound up saying, "Well, we agree with you, and we agree with Google Sheets. We're not allowed to use Google Sheets, but we agree with the perspective that we wish circular references were not a thing, but we get too many spreadsheets with circular references from our customers. And if you have any prayer being acquired here at Goldman, you're going to support circular references." So, so you know, literally a couple all nighters, seeing the sunrise and so on within about a week or so. I had them working, and eventually got them working as fast, or as even more, more capable way than what we could see in Excel. So that was incredibly gratifying. And then further validated the overall valuation engine approach from some true uh, um, hardcore PhD computer science people, and math jockeys and so on. And that was also very, very validating to hear from those types of people, that like, no, you're doing about all you can with uh that generic grid, right, that someone could put anything into, right, in a way that you can't use all the sort of fancy fancier mathematical approaches, that you would use if you knew exactly what you had on your hands, right? Anyway, hope that wasn't too rambling.
No, no, that's great. And I want to dig in a little bit on the acquisition by Goldman because you had a successful exit. You got acquired. Was that your plan from the get-go, or what led to you deciding you would go and sell to Goldman instead of just continuing to run the company on your own?
Yeah, it was pretty simple in that regard. And yeah, success in air quotes, or whatever. Um, Most startups fail, right? So most startups will lose 100% of their investor money. So I did feel uh, very gratified. It was very gratifying to be able to deliver a very nice return over a relatively short period of time to the people that did invest with me. But simply put, yeah, the too hard bucket and whatever else, whatever other failings or flaws that I'll take full responsibility for. Buck stopped with me. Yeah, I didn't raise enough bucks, right? So at some point, I had put, um, I'll just call it publicly for the first time, maybe an irresponsible amount of my own money into the situation, and could not keep doing it. Meanwhile, enough people at Goldman had seen this and they said, oh my God, well, um, uh, let's do this. Right. And again, it was a long courtship and lots of heavy tire kicking, but we got it done.
And congratulations for getting it done. For any other founders listening to this right now and are going through conversations or negotiations about an acquisition or thinking about selling, what did you learn from that experience that you think would be valuable for them to keep in mind?
I don't know if it's every day, but certainly not a week. Definitely not every month. I, replay this whole script in my head. If I had been get through that too hard bucket kind of objection earlier, could I have stayed independent? Maybe it would have absolutely meant more focus. Initially, the product was probably more focused. Uh, Tried to please some people by broadening out the scope of the product that introduced a whole lot more features that had to be there. A laughable example almost was initially the product didn't support copy paste because it didn't need to for reasons that we don't need to get into. But eventually it absolutely did. And oh my God, that was a very challenging comp sci problem to get that to work correctly. So yeah, the earlier you can achieve that focus, clarity of message, of pitch to the audience and so on, it's too many times to count who's your target audience. Now I have that down to a single word: developers, right? And well, what kinds of developers? Okay, we can talk about that. But the kinds of pitches that I make now to developers of certain stripes, uh, you can see it at clearfactor.com. The setup to then the pitch of developers of all stripes, so, find something to love in ClearFactor. Yeah, it took a long time to get to that sort of realization that that's where the magic happened. So the faster you can get to that, the better. I can think of some other anecdotes, but I, still want to keep.
No, no, this is really insightful. And as you said at the start, you're now rolling ClearFactor back out again. So tell us a little bit more about that entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, let's clarify that a little bit. So I'm back to a one man show. That said, I have a battle hardened in pretty much every sense of the word product. That said, it um, was not yet, we were just there, getting it to be publicly facing through Goldman, right? And then the world changed. What's going through my mind right now is, well, yes, I've now 4 patents, notably the last two around a feature capability that I think is architecturally extremely significant. Let's say the ability to separate the compute and that web app, the grid based experience of the spreadsheet from the petabytes of data, physically keep them separate and scale them both independently and bring in data ad hoc on the fly, only the bits that you need at the moment you need them, rather than carrying all the data in the spreadsheet all the time and then slicing and dicing it with all kinds of Excel tricks. Definitely a road's ruin that we saw too many times. That keeps me, you know, yeah, excited for Monday mornings, right? Being able to, I want to see that capability out in the wild. But I need a team again, right? I need a partnership. So the partnership could take many forms. I am working with an advisory firm on, sort of figuring that out. And suffice to say, I'm happy to talk to pretty much anyone to, see how, what kind of partnership we could best wind up. in here, right? So I have tremendous amounts of work energy left in me, and not looking to air quote retire or whatever the definition of that is anytime soon. And uh, yeah, looking for the right few people and few bucks um, to keep this all going.
You're doing the heroic work of entrepreneurship again, which I think is really exciting. And so to wrap this up, I'm curious, as you undertake this entrepreneurial journey again, is there anything you're doing differently this time based on what you've learned, whether from your time at Goldman or the first time building up ClearFactor or anything else?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The gigantic product, gigantic code base. Too many times to count. I've heard things like, "Oh no, you probably have too many features in the product." That's the high functionality bar. But at this point, yeah, we have a very compelling story, very compelling core capabilities of the product that are you know ready to go, and it's time to get out and sell. Right. So that's where we were. And inevitably, I don't know, too many times to count at Goldman. Oh, maybe I've written my last line of code. And then for whatever reason, I'd get sucked back in, still knowing the code base better than anybody. Um, had a great team, but of course, was eager to actually get out there in combination with other people, of course, right? And get, get the thing um, in front of, paying customers. So yeah, eager to do that once again. That said, fully respect that, just the way I would proudly say, or well, with humility say, I'm, um, not a DevOps person. That's a whole separate career path. I'm an application developer. And meaning I'm also not the person to squeak out the last 0.1% of performance from some deep inner core algorithm. Um, I respect that great salespeople, right, are also something completely different. So uh, inevitably need at least one of those. So, but yeah, it's long past time to just actually be out in the market, be engaged with the customers again, um, and start selling. I mean, thankfully at Goldman we had reached the stage where extremely gratifying. Where I like to say, the product went viral. People would put their reputation on the line, right, and tell their coworkers, "Oh yeah, you got to check this thing out. It's cool." And new use cases would come up without us, me and the team sparking them, right? Um, but it's time to spark use cases again.
Well, fantastic, Dean. I'm so excited for you to be on this journey and to spark those new use cases, and just really appreciate you taking the time to share your journey and your lessons with the Liberty Ventures Network.
Thank you again for this opportunity. Really fantastic. One trite little ask. I noticed this morning I'm 2 likes away, I think, or follows on Twitter, X. Uh, Someone could be my 1,000th follower. So run to run to X, find me at Dean Zarras, and you'll hear. Well, you'll get a perspective as to why you and I are connected, and why Liberty Ventures is a great thing. Why Liberty's a great thing.
Fantastic. I hope someone listening here does become that 1,000th follower for you on X, Dean, and anything else that the network can do to support you, we're here for you.
Awesome, Alexander. Thanks again so much.
Thank you, Dean. Really.